Longer enough.
Ballooning. It's a great sport, but in spite of the light and carefree atmosphere surrounding it, ballooning is based on a very firm foundation. A foundation of skilled and expert training by professional instructors. But even these instructors might find it difficult to explain all the equipment and procedures to their students, for there's more to this sky sport than meets the eye. Illustrated instruction is what's needed, and what could be more suited to the task than video. Now, I haven't even been up in a balloon yet, but let's just say I were going to teach the sport, and I've got this videotape that illustrates the entire field procedure, from arrival through setup to ready to fly balloon. Well, that's all fine, but my tape alone isn't enough. Not if I can't find what's on it. I have to be able to call up the different pieces of material to illustrate my presentation, and I have to be able to call this material up in any order, quickly, easily, and with great accuracy. That's just one of the reasons that Sony's developed its new generation of random access devices, this RX series of random access units, to help teach ballooning, to help in the classroom, to help in the boardroom, to help you. Sony has two new random access devices, and both the RX-303 and the RX-353 can assist you by quickly, accurately, and automatically cueing and playing back tape material. But they can offer you much more. They'll automatically cue and play back one or more pieces of tape material selected in any order. A repeat button, which allows continuous playback of up to 8 selected tape portions. And correct tone, a confidence feature whereby a beep is heard as each button is pressed, unless an improper entry is made, in which case no sound is heard. The RX-353 is the more sophisticated model, and it offers many additional features. A marker feature to allow you to return to a pre-selected tape position. Automatic playback at specified times during the day of up to 8 pieces of tape material, and up to 8 automatic timed recordings per day on a single tape without human assistance. And segment programming and check capability, which we'll discuss in detail in Program 3 on this tape. It's not so much the mechanics of these features that's exciting. Think of what they could mean to your presentations and the very way that videotapes will be produced in the future. These units give full branching capability. Inside a videotape presentation, you can actually allow your audience or students to skip material they may already be familiar with, or even choose the material they want to see and in which order they want to see it. Now you can prepare a standard tape and then custom tailor your presentation to an audience using Sony's RX units. And a videotape can be supplied with an index and used with all the ease and flexibility of a book. But these are just some of the more obvious uses of the device. Sony's RX units put any videotape material as close as your fingertips. And they have two very different operating modes, both address search and segment search. Let's use the RX-303 and do an example of an address search. In this mode, the RX unit works very much like Sony's RM300. Suppose my tape contains 4 sections. At this time, I don't need to see the first 3 pieces of material. I just want to see the last one. I know this 4th section begins 15 minutes and 23 seconds into the tape. I enter this time into the unit and press this key, the search button. The tape cues to the selected position and begins to play back, continuing until I stop it or it reaches the end of the tape. This address search mode will work with any videotape. All you have to know is where your material is located. And while viewing a tape in this address search mode, you can remotely control the functions of the videotape recorder using these buttons. You can pause, fast forward, stop, rewind, or play, all using the RX unit as a remote control. This is the last time we'll talk about the address search mode. In the rest of this program and the rest of this series, we'll talk about the more advanced procedures made possible by using the Sony RX unit in the segment search mode. My tape, as we said, has 4 pieces of material on it. Let's call them segments. Each segment has a start and a stop time. With the RX-353, we program this data using the methods we'll describe in detail in the last program on this tape. I define the 4 segments, but maybe I want to play back different combinations of the material. I can program segments 5, 6, and 7 as well. This information I've programmed into the RX-353 is recorded on the audio track at the head of the videotape. The next time I want to watch this tape played back with either of the random access devices, the segment data recorded on the audio track will program either unit. Now, the programming has already been done using the RX-353, so let's use the 303 and do an example of a segment search. This time, when I want to find my piece of material, I don't have to enter a time in minutes and seconds. I just enter one number, let's say 04, and I press search. The tape will automatically cue itself and begin to play back the segment. It will also stop itself, all done quickly, accurately, and without holding up your presentation. Whichever unit you use, you plug the remote connector into the Random Access VTR's remote receptacle. This audio pigtail plugs into the audio line out jack and reads the segment data. On machines with a remote selector switch on the rear panel, select the 300 position. On the front of your unit, the programmed operations switch and the timer operations switch must be placed in the off positions. When you insert a tape into the recorder, the random access unit will rewind the tape to the head and play it for some 25 to 50 seconds. If there's no segment data, it will then rewind the tape and prepare to operate in the address search mode. If, however, it reads this type of signal, it's being programmed with the segment data, and this light comes on indicating it's now ready to operate in the segment mode. During this reading process, the function buttons on the RX unit will not operate. After this reading process, if you want to use the audio at the mini jack, the RX plug may now be removed. It's finished reading the segment data. Now let's take a look at some of the more sophisticated uses of the RX units. Maybe I want to see all my material, but I want to see it in a different order. Maybe I want to see segments 3, 2, 1, and 4. With an RX unit, it's easy. I can program my playback order, and the tape segments will be presented one after another in my chosen sequence. I just enter the numbers of all the material I want to see in the order I want to see it in, and then press search. My material will now be presented automatically in my selected order. I now have that capability to custom tailor my presentation from a standard tape. But maybe I want to speak between the presentation of the various pieces of tape material. I can, of course, press pause during a segment playback, but more importantly, I can press pause before the segment plays back while the tape is searching for that next piece of tape material. In this case, the tape will thread itself and freeze. I need never be cut off by the videotape. It'll cue to the beginning of the segment and pause, waiting for me to roll it at the exact moment I choose. During the playback of a segment, these remote control functions take on new capabilities as well. They allow you to skip and review. Maybe you've seen enough of a segment and you'd like to move on to the next one. Well, if you press fast forward, your tape will do exactly that. This is called the skip feature, and it means that you need never play more of a piece of material than you need to make your point. On the other hand, maybe it all happened a little bit too fast and you'd like to review a segment you've been watching. In this case, you just press rewind and the tape will cue itself to the beginning of the segment and play it all to you again. This is called the review feature, and it means that you can replay a complicated portion of the tape over and over again. There are two other features you should know about as well. They are repeat and segment interrupt. If, after you enter the segment numbers that you want to play back, you press R instead of search, the tape will repeatedly play back your selections until you stop it manually. The random access unit will play your selections over and over again until you press clear and stop. And the last feature we're going to talk about here is segment interrupt. Even the most carefully prepared presentation can't anticipate questions. Maybe you've programmed your playback sequence, but halfway through, in response to a question, you want to sidetrack and show a piece of material from somewhere else on the tape. You can do this without affecting what you've already programmed into the RX unit by using a segment interrupt. During playback of a segment, I can enter another segment number and press search. My tape immediately stops and cues to my new selection. It plays this back and then returns to the start of the segment where it was interrupted. That's flexibility. You can change your mind and make minor corrections as you go along. Speaking of minor corrections, what happens with the random access units if you make a mistaken entry? In this case, the clear button is used. If you attempt an improper entry into the RX unit, like trying to have it play back a segment that doesn't exist, the RX unit will alert you to your mistake. You won't hear the correct tone, and the display will begin to flash when you press search. You must now press clear and re-enter your proper request. Apart from correcting mistakes, the clear button can be used to cancel all upcoming instructions inside the RX unit. If, while a segment is playing back, you press this button, all instructions are canceled, including the one to stop, and the VTR will enter the normal play mode. So we've covered all the features of the RX-303, and of course these are some of the features of the RX-353. We've seen that they have two search modes, both address search and segment search. Address search works with any tape, and you locate tape segments by entering in their numerical address in minutes and seconds from tape start. Segment search allows automatic queuing of up to 8 tape segments in any order. You can skip the rest of a segment you're viewing and move on to your next selection. You can watch the segment you're viewing all over again from its beginning. You can effect repeated playback of up to 8 segments. You can amend your presentation while it's in progress. and interrupt your playback program to present some new material without having to reprogram the entire sequence. And you can make corrections to improper entries into the RX unit and cancel all upcoming instructions of the random access unit to take manual control of the tape. If you're going to be using the RX-353, you'll have even more features. Let's have a look at this unit now. The RX-353 has two displays and, in a way, two keyboards. One display shows your selected position. It shows what the tape is queuing to next. The second display shows the segment number of the tape's actual location. We're going to look at three features of the RX-353 here: marker, program check, and mode switching. This is the marker key. At any time while the tape is playing, you can press this key to enter into marker memory that specific tape location. At any time later on, if you press just search, the tape will re-queue to this location and resume its programmed playback from there. To see any of the other functions of the RX-353, we must remove this cover from the keyboard and reveal, in effect, our second keyboard. This faceplate is provided to simplify the appearance of the keyboard when the unit is being used for normal playback purposes. It can be stored on the back of the unit. All these other operations of the RX-353 require the use of the function key. This key is activated by turning this side switch on. Now we can do a program check. Let's say you've entered the numbers of the segments you want to see into the RX-353. There can be up to 63 segments, and maybe you forget exactly what your entries were or what segments are left to play back. If this happens, you can check what you've programmed the unit to do by using the program check function. If you select function and then pcheck, the display will present to you a readout of the remainder of your program in memory. You need never be in doubt about what you've asked the unit to do for you. The last thing we're going to discuss about the RX-353 is its mode switching capability. You may be in the segment search mode, but you'd like to know how far into the tape you are. Or maybe you know where something is located on the tape, but you haven't got it defined as a segment. In either of these cases, you could be helped if somehow you could switch from the segment search mode to the address search mode. This is how you can do it. If you're in the segment mode and you select function and then mode, the RX-353 will enter the address search mode and will display your time into the tape. You can switch back to segment mode the same way, and the changeover has not affected any of your segment data. You can freely switch back and forth between modes. There are many more things the RX-353 can do for you, but we'll discuss them in much more detail in another program on this tape. The RX-353 can enter segment data. You use it to define the start and stop times of your segments. You can change segment data already programmed. You can record segment data onto the head of your tapes. And the unit comes with a built-in 24-hour clock, which allows you to record or play back automatically for up to 8 individually selected time periods. All these functions and features are fine, but what are we really talking about with these new random access units? What we're really talking about is efficiency and flexibility. Time was that making a videotape presentation was a risky business. Less accurate counters meant that queuing up tape material was largely a hit-or-miss operation. No more. The random access units are effective. They do your queuing for you quickly and accurately. And the random access units are flexible. They help put you in control, even after you've entered your playback program. Skip, review, segment interrupt, clear, they all help make you master over your presentation. With ease and with grace, you can call up any piece of material at hand. You can truly custom tailor your presentation to the changing mood, tone, or level of your class or meeting. But so far we've been talking about the benefits of the random access units for people making a presentation, like salesmen. But the units will have applications much broader and more sophisticated than these. For instance, the acceptance in court of videotaped evidence is becoming more common. But there are still the questions of, was that piece of evidence complete? Could it have been altered by editing? Was it shown out of context? It would be more convincing to work from a complete original tape and program the segments of interest for playback. In education, the programming flexibility of these units will enable program designers to make student-orientated teaching tapes. The students will be able to proceed at their own pace. In this very basic example, we've supposed a teaching tape divided into 8 segments, which, under normal circumstances, would be programmed to run consecutively. But if at the end of a segment the student has not fully understood the material presented, he may elect to call up a segment with supplementary information. This information could be available in a number of different forms: a straightforward supplementary segment, 2 series units where segment 12 would further detail segment 11 if necessary, or a number of parallel units where the student could choose the type of supplementary information required. Efficiency, flexibility, ease of operation. That is Sony's new series of random access devices, the RX-303 Random Access Unit and the RX-353 Random Access Unit and Programmer. They really are here to help you. Think about it. I'm Paul Sampson, and welcome to this, our second of 3 programs on the Sony RX series of random access devices. In this program, we'd like to give you a chance to use an RX unit, so what we're going to do is put you in the position of being a ballooning instructor and have you control the playback of several pieces of tape training material. As we go through the tape, I'm going to ask you to pause and stop it at various points. So I'd like to remind you at this time that the remote control functions on the RX unit are located here. We're also assuming that you've seen the first program in this series and you're basically familiar with the keys and the functions of the RX unit. Let's have a look at the 4 sequences you might use to illustrate a presentation to your ballooning students. Segment 1 shows some of the pre-flight check procedure. Segment 2 shows the balloon being inflated. Segment 3 shows the gondola and balloon being prepared for inflation. And segment 4 shows the balloon, now fully inflated and airborne, flying across country. Obviously, these segments are out of sequence. For our present discussion, we'd probably want to present them as 3, 2, 1, and 4. Let's program your RX unit for this playback sequence. When you hear the tone, would you please pause the tape and then enter 03, 02, 01, 04, and then release pause to continue. Your tape's playback sequence is now programmed. If you have an RX-353, let's check your playback program. Remove the faceplate from the RX-353 and check that the side function safety switch is on. If you were to press function and program check, you would see on the display a readout of your playback program in memory. At the sound of the tone, would you please stop the tape and press function and program check to see your program in memory displayed to you. You're now ready to play back the material in your selected order to your ballooning students. As we go through, I'll be suggesting that you try various things, so please be prepared to operate the buttons on your RX unit. Now, would you press search to begin the playback of the 4 segments that we've already programmed.
Again.
You start to watch this segment, but a student asks you a question. It so happens that you can answer his question by sidetracking and showing him segment 18 on this tape. With the keyboard, please enter 1, 8, and then press search. Pause the tape if you like to do this, but do it now.
Plate. Right, your top is in and sealed, your vent's closed.
Well, this check is all very interesting, but it can take up to 10 minutes to complete. Maybe you'd like to skip some of this. You can move on to the next segment by pressing fast forward to activate the skip feature. Press fast forward now on your RX unit to do a segment skip.
68.
Check the vent, then open those. Check the crown, any small serrations, any small openings, tears, anything. Crown look okay?
Pretty good inflation. Wasn't bad.
Maybe one of your students wants to see this material again from the start. You can press the rewind button to activate the segment review feature. The tape will rewind to the start of this segment and begin playing it all over again. Try it now. Press rewind to do a segment review. This is a good example of the system's branching capability. In the middle of a programmed playback, you can sidetrack to another piece of material on the tape without disturbing anything. If this were a math program, I could have offered you a more detailed explanation of developing the standard equation to a parabola by selecting segment 18. Or if the program were a drama, I might have let you choose a happy or a sad ending. If this were a management training tape, I could have offered to show you a more detailed explanation of company shipping procedures by selecting this segment. This is an interactive system, a responsive system, a system for point-of-purchase displays, for in-classroom teaching, or for business presentations. When this segment ends, the tape is going to stop and re-cue itself to the beginning of segment 1. Would you please watch that segment through because there's some material you haven't seen yet. We'll see you there.
The lake down, there's a cap down there going up in the morning too, Bob Cole.
Yeah.
He just went up and down.
At this point, you may want to emphasize to your students the importance of properly packing the balloon up. It has to fit in a small canvas package that stores in the gondola. Locate the M or memory key on your RX-353. Press it now, please. You're entering into the marker memory this tape location's address. Let the tape play on, and then to reinforce the point with your students, you would merely press search to return to that shot. The tape will continue with its programmed operation from there. You can press search now to recue the tape to the marker position and have it replay the last portion of this segment. Try it. Press search to recue to your marker position. Finally, we've seen it delivered, prepared, inflated, and now, yes, it flies. This is the last segment, and without further instruction, the tape would stop at the end of it, since it was the last of the 4 that you originally programmed. You would then have to press play to see the rest of this presentation. However, let's try yet another feature. By pressing clear, the upcoming instructions from the RX unit, the command to stop, would be cancelled, and the tape would continue to play through to the end of the program. Try it. Press clear now, or don't do anything and the tape will stop. You'll then have to press play to continue. So those are the basic features of Sony's RX series of random access devices. As you can see, they are simple and easy to use after all. And they do offer that efficiency, flexibility, and ease of operation that we talked about earlier on. Coming up is the third and final program in this series, in which we'll talk about some of the more advanced capabilities of the RX-353. We're going to talk about using the built-in clock for timer-controlled recording and playback. And we'll talk about programming segment data. If you're interested in these procedures, stay with us for a moment. If you're happy knowing the operations methods that we've talked about so far, by all means you may stop here. Do remember, though, that this tape is supplied with a full index, much as you might expect to find in a book. Using it, and an RX unit, you can access any of the information in the 3 programs on this tape. My name is Paul Sampson. Thank you for being with us.